Okay, so continuing from the first part of the tutorial, so now we have our track outline here. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the curbs. By the way, if you aren't willing to spend more than an hour, let's say, on a track, then this might be the best for you, because sometimes track building can take up to a month. But that doesn't mean non-stop to a month. We're talking about like maybe you spend 1 or 2 hours a day on it. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to make the curb. So you're going to press Alt W or click on this over here, and you're going to get out of this. That way you have all these tabs. Next you're going to click on this tab over here, and you want to zoom in until until you're at the last point where the squares don't start shrinking even more, like you get more and more of them. So once you're over here, you're going to want to get your line, and then this black line right here, you're going to start over here. And depending on how big you want to make your curbs, normally most curbs are going to be like halfway is going to be maybe banked upward a bit, and then the other part's going to be flat. You don't want to make them too banked upward, because when you go to hit them, you might flip or something. So normally you want to make them a bit flatter like this, because in game everything's going to have a lot more it's going to be a lot more elevated in game than it looks right now. So let's say this is your curb right here. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to your activate pivot point only. You're going to press S on your keyboard, that way grid snaps, and then you're going to want to snap it right to the end right here. If you don't do this, when you go to make your curb, the curb's going to end up going through the center of your track, and we don't want that. And obviously if you have different kinds of curbs, like maybe one's a bit flatter, one's maybe a bit longer, then you can just play around with it. This is where testing it goes into place, where you actually load into the game and test it. But I'll show you how to load. That'll be in the next couple tutorials on how to put it into the game. So now that you have this curve done right here, now you're going to go back over here, you're going to press S on your keyboard to make sure it's out of snap, and then you're going to go back into full screen. You can just click on this over here, that way we get back to the normal thing here. So now you're going to click on your track, go to Edit Poly, and then wherever the curve starts, you're going to click, and make sure you're holding Shift before you click. So hold down Shift and click, and then wherever you want your curve to end, you're going to basically keep holding down Shift, and then right where your curve ends, you're going to keep holding down Shift, you're going to click again, and then you can let go of Shift. Now, if it goes up like this, or if it's not perfectly around the inside or outside, then when you go to create your curve, it's going to fold into the track. So in this case, if you have one little dot right here, one little straight line, just hold down Alt and then just highlight where the thing is, and there you go. Now you have where your curve's going to be. So now you're going to press Create Shape, but before you do that, make sure you have it on make sure it's on linear, not on smooth. And then once that's done, you're going to deselect your edge and click onto the plane. And now you're going to click on this line right here, Shape 01. First thing, you don't need to do anything with this yet. Now you're going to go to this plus right here, you're going to go to circle, go to select compound objects, go to loft. Now you're going to press Create Shape, and then you're going to click on this right here. Now sometimes Create Shape may not, you won't be able to click on it, and that would be because you have a line somewhere else on your track. In this case, what you have to do is you basically have to delete that shape, go back to the Edit Poly, and then deselect everything, like all those red lines. Make sure you select it like over here, click out of it, and then you can reselect everything. So now, before we put anything on it, put your path and shape and path steps to 0. That way you have the least amount of polys on it, because more polys is more leg. And then you're going to click over here. You're going to put this back into full screen, and there you go. You have your curb. Now, of course, some curbs are going to have different things, like some might be curved in differently. You can always adjust that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to rename this to TRK curb, and then you're going to go to Edit Poly, and then you're going to get the selection. So let's say the curb folds into itself like this, right? Obviously we can't do it like this, so what we're going to do is we're going to select the snap, so press S on your keyboard, and then it'll snap it to these lines. So if you want to do something like this, that way the curb's kind of curved like that, and then we do the same thing over here, then yep, that's one way to do it. Now before we exit out of this, in order for it to the curb to not be buggy, we're going to have to do Control A, which is going to highlight everything here, all of these little nodes, not the track, just the curb, and then you're going to press Weld. By doing this, it'll make the curb less buggy. That way, if you hit it at a bad angle, you won't flip over and stuff. Now that you're done, you can actually delete this line here. So you can just click on it and then delete it. Next, we're going to load a texture onto here. So before we do anything, you're going to have to go to Surface Parameters and press Apply Mapping. Now in this case, the same way to get a curb texture is the same as the pavement one. So I'm just going to quickly search up like a curb texture. So let's say we want to, I'm not going to do the steps, but let's say we want red and white curb texture. Then we'll get something like this. In this case, you would have to like use a snipping tool and kind of play around with it in Photoshop until you get it into a square, or yeah, and then make sure obviously you make it 512 by 512. So once you have your curb texture, you are going to go to your go find the texture. So in this case, I have all my stuff organized, so I actually have textures for all these things here. So in this case, I'd go to my curb texture and go to the red and white one, and then you get something that looks like this. Now, this is completely normal for it to look like this. Make sure you select Edit Poly, and then right above it, you're going to put UVW X form. Now, you're going to put the rotation to 90, and then this Utah right here, this is what's going to change like the distance between all the stuff. So in this case, maybe we want it to be like kind of wide, but not too wide. So we'll do something like this. When you go to do textures and stuff, or for any of your mods, make sure you just have a my mods, like make a mods folder. That way you have all your stuff in here. All of your tools, like your track tools when you go to put into the game, or paint it if you make paints. You have your templates for all of the other stuff, like if you make paints. You have your tracks folder with progress and complete. That way you have all of these here. And then obviously a textures folder, and then make sure you have all these folders labeled for different things, like one's for road, one's for different people. I mean, people are kind of hard. I haven't put any in yet, but anyway. So once you have this done now, you have your first curb done. So now let's make another curb somewhere else. So over here. Now, let's go and place the curb here. Just like this. So we do create shape. I'm not sure if there's actually a curb here IRL, but let's say we want to place one right here, and we go to loft. Now, you're going to notice this is not, you're not able to select it, and you're probably wondering why the hell not. The reason is because we forgot to deselect the red line over here. So, you have to delete the line you made, go back to the track, go to Edit Poly, and select the edge. Now you notice how this is highlighted over here. That's because we didn't deselect it. So in this case, to make things fast, you can just hold down Alt and highlight that entire area. And now just this is selected, and then you can just place the curb on this now. So now you can select this, go to Loft, Get Shape, and there you go. Now you have another curb there, and then just do the same steps for that, and then do it for all your curbs. And that applies for also different curbs. If you want to have a different curb over here, then I'd recommend just grabbing this, copying it over, hold down Shift and drag up, that way it goes over there. Select this, and then let's say you want it to be a bit lower, like a bit more flat, then you can do that. And then it's the same steps. You select the line, and then you do Loft, Get Shape, and then select the other curb that you want. Make sure you always label things, because if you don't label them, then there's going to be issues when you go to load into the game where you can't actually hit the curb and you just end up falling through it, or same thing with the track, you just fall through the map.